Welcome to Highlight My Town. I'm Dan Edson. We're here today with David Gress of the city of Raymore. Tell us about the What's Happening map that the city has on their website. A lot going on with the 2026 building here in Raymore with Knoll Creek, and here we are in Alexander Creek. Tell us what's going on with all the building around town, if you would.
Yeah, that's a good question. So good opportunity. We just in the last couple of months finished upgrading our What's Happening app with the city. That's the map that we use to communicate mostly with residents and people in the community about what's going on. We changed a couple things about the different types of information that we can host on there, different plan sets, meeting dates, just general project information. It's quite an upgrade from the map that we've been using for the past 6 or 7 years. So we've been pretty fortunate to get that out in the community recently. That tool creates a lot of communication avenues for the city. You kind of asked about the different subdivisions going on. What most folks don't realize is just how long and how many different steps there are in some of those processes. And some of those occasions provide opportunities for input from the residents. Some of them don't. Some of them are more administrative in nature. So we've been trying really hard to get that information out using that tool so residents know, whatever's going on around your neighborhood. If you have an opportunity to come speak about the project, if you have things that you feel should be addressed, that we're making those opportunities known. And if those opportunities aren't available, there's still the information about the project so that residents are informed and they know what's going on around their neighborhood. The good thing about where Raymore has been recently, you mentioned, we have several neighborhoods going on, different phases of construction. But that progress is really, really well spread out across the entire community. Which is good from a lot of different aspects, but from a balance standpoint of the different schools that these families might send their kids to and just where construction activity is happening, it's usually really good to see that spread across the community and not focused in one particular area. So I think, despite all the construction activity that's going on, it is really good to see that it's in the entire community and not one neighborhood, one geographic area of the city.
David, the construction process is moving pretty fast in the city. Tell us what the city is doing to keep up with the utilities and the roads for the families that are moving in.
Yeah, that's a good question. So that process, from start to finish of a subdivision going into a home being built, pretty lengthy process with a lot of steps in between there. One thing that I feel like is important to know and kind of understand for the community, before the city even entertains the idea of issuing a building permit for a new home in a subdivision, there's a whole process that they have to go through to make sure that the roads are adequate, the sewers are there, the water service is there. A lot of that work is done on the front end of a project when we're going through the zoning process or the subdivision review process. The city, relies on a lot of different studies and plans that kind of tell us, based on what's being built, here's what the city needs to be aware of in terms of what infrastructure is required. So we go through a lot of different checks and balances, I'll call it, of what has been accomplished in the subdivision. Are all the streets there? Stormwater is all taken care of. Those things are all very important on the front end of the project to make sure that regardless if 100 homes are built in the phase over a year or if it takes 10 years to build 100 homes in that same phase, the infrastructure is there from day one, regardless of how fast or slow somebody wants to build a home in the community.
David, there's lots of housing diversity here in Raymore from all the subdivisions going in, Knoll Creek, Alexander Creek here, and all the other subdivisions going in, which provides a lot of options for different demographics to move into Raymore. How does the city benefit from all the different demographics of housing?
That's another good question. So, one thing we look for in our housing goal for the city is that diversity. The main idea behind that goal is to allow residents to stay in Raymore as long as they can at any stage in their lifetime, right? So we're here at Alexander Creek today, which is a 55 and older kind of maintenance provided development. It provides good housing for folks that need that. We have several other neighborhoods that are more traditional neighborhoods at varying price points, whether that's a new resident moving to the city for their first home. We have subdivisions that would theoretically allow them to move up to their next home. And then again, between Alexander Creek, Knoll Creek, Creekmoor, the city has benefited from a lot of varied housing types here in the city at different price points that we think provides the benefit for our residents to be able to have different options in the city no matter what circumstances they might be in.
Honoring our roots, talk to me about some of the older houses here in Raymore versus all the exciting new construction, but the original town. Tell us what the city is doing there. I understand there's some projects going on with that.
Yeah, a lot of exciting things going on in the original town area. Talked a lot about new construction, new houses coming in. That area of our city is really the heart of what Raymore was when it was established. So there's been a lot of good activities and projects going on there around our park and around that neighborhood. I think a couple years you and I met at Hanna Station Park to have, talk about things going on there. Most recently, and I'm sure our parks director would be excited to talk with you more about it, but the city recently just purchased some additional land around Hanna Station Park. We recently moved the farmers market back to that area, which was a big thing that our residents had been wanting for quite some time. So our goal there with kind of purchasing that additional land is to make more space for park activities, maybe a more dedicated space for the farmers market. That's a really nice, kind of a regional, but also a neighborhood park that draws in a lot of people throughout the year with splash ground, all-inclusive spray ground, and then again, our farmers market, which has moved back there. So a lot of good interest in keeping that area, a nice area of the city that brings residents in. I think our Parks Department has a lot of good projects and ideas in store for that area of town specifically, but also just the residents of the city as a whole. So stay tuned for some exciting projects coming forward in the next couple years there.
Exciting.
Yeah.
David, we have a lot of neighborhoods in Raymore that are 20 plus years old. What is the city doing to keep those neighborhoods vibrant for all the families that are moving in?
Yeah, we have a lot of neighborhoods that are well established in the community, and there's kind of two different ways the city works to keep those neighborhoods nice. Over the last several years, our council has invested more and more each year into our infrastructure preservation and reconstruction. So think street resurfacing, replacing curbs, gutters in neighborhoods to keep the neighborhood looking nice and our infrastructure functioning well. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to take on a lot of those projects more and more each year. It seems like spread across the city. The other issues that we kind of deal with in older neighborhoods is just there's older homes. A lot of those have had multiple owners in their lifetime. So our code enforcement process through my department is one way we try to keep up on that and try and be proactive in trying to address some of those issues. So, think chipping paint, tall grass, all those things really, as a whole, have an impact on our neighborhoods. So it's very important to us that our code enforcement division stays proactive in a lot of that so that we don't, get behind. A lot of that stuff can take a lot of time to get caught back up on if you let that go. So, I think our code enforcement division does a good job of focusing, his time in areas that need it and staying proactive in the areas of town that deserve that. So,
as a local real estate agent, I get asked this question all the time. When is Raymore going to get some more restaurants? And we have a lot of houses going in. Talk to me about how the connection between the houses and the new restaurants and the commercial development in Raymore.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, if you think about housing growth and as that relates to commercial growth, rooftops and housing growth is kind of a tool that we can use to help get more demand and support for the commercial growth that our residents want to see and that we need here in the city. So it's really good to be able to market and do things like this that really celebrate the growth. We tend to try to use those things to capture the attention of these retailers that we know our residents want. A lot of times where we end up is just we don't quite hit that threshold that those retailers are looking for. So, the diversity in our housing growth and the amount of it is one way that the city's kind of kept up with the demands of what these retailers want to see. We try to spend a lot of time sharing information about that with retailers and kind of the things that are going on in the city. I think we're finally in a position with the amount of growth that we've had. I think there's some exciting things that could be on the horizon here for the city if things kind of continue in that direction.
David, thanks a lot for coming by and speaking with us today. It's exciting to hear about everything that's going on here in Raymore.
I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to share all the great things going on in our city.